right? This is the boss. Now this is the boss. Now what happens is this boss means this is your boss means the brain. Now we know that our body is having different cells are there. Means the cell they are present at this area also, at this area, this area, this area, everywhere in the body. What we are having? We are having the cell, right? So everywhere we are having the cell. And now we know that in the body, each and every cell is having its own director, and the director is nucleus. But this nucleus is always function whenever the message will come from the boss. So guys, please remember that this boss controls each and every cells of the body. None of the cell can do their functionality in absence of message of the boss. So whenever this boss will say, then only these cells will start doing their functionality. And it means this boss need to be attached with each and every cell of the body. Whenever this boss is going to be attached with each and every cells of the body, so suppose this area is attached via like this is attached over here, this is attached over here, this is attached over here. And this attachment will be possible with via wires, and these wires we call as nerves. What we call is nerves. So nerves are simply, that is your attachment or making a connection between the brain and the cell. So this nerves will help the making the connection. Whenever this connection will be gone, suppose this connection is gone. Suppose this connection is gone from here. What will happen guys? If this connection breaks over here, now no more, this hand is no more is connected with the boss. And whenever none of your body area is getting disconnected from or from any area of your body getting disconnected from the brain, this condition we call as paralysis. What we call this? Paralysis. So this area we call as paralysis area. So what is the meaning of paralysis? Paralysis means there is no connection between the boss and the organ area, that we call as paralysis. Now the thing is that, what happens guys? When this paralysis happens, this area, suppose this area get paralyzed, this area still having the muscle, still having the bone, still having the blood supply, but this muscle is not contracting. Why? Because this message for the contraction, this could be done via this boss. And this boss can't send this message to these cells, and once these cells will not get the message, guys, these cells will not do their function. And these cells will always remain into the resting state. So I hope now you can easily understand what is the meaning of paralysis, why we are calling it the paralysis, what will be happening to the paralysis. Now the thing is, we know that each and every part of the body should be under regulation of the boss, but this boss, if suppose connecting via the nerves, but some area of your body, they are having the multiple cells inside this one organ. Now these multiple cells can't be connected via each and single nerves via this boss. Suppose let's take example for the kidney. Suppose this is your kidney. This is your kidney. And these kidney are actually having the cells we call as nephrons. So in the one kidney, there is 1 million of nephron is present, right? 1 million of nephron is present. So what happens guys? If the 1 million of nephron is present, this is impossible to supply each and every nephron via each and every single nerve from the brain, right? So what brain did? Now this brain made a group of cells on above area of the kidney. And this group of the cell, they are having the special function to produce a chemical. And this chemical we call as hormone. And this group of cells we call as glands. So this is your adrenal glands. Now these hormones are actually the chemicals, and the chemicals which will be function that whenever these chemicals will be released from here, these chemicals will mix into the blood, and we know that blood is supplying to each and every cell of your kidney. So what will happen? With using of this blood, this chemical will reach each and every cells. Now what will happen? These cells are having the pre-information. These cells are having the pre-information for this chemical. And this pre-information is already preloaded inside this cell. Suppose the cell which is present inside the kidney is nephron. So this nephron wants to reabsorb water, it wants to reabsorb the sodium. So this information is already pre-stored, and this pre-stored information is actually functioning for this cell. So whatever happens, this brain connected via the special nerve to this glands. Whenever this brain wants to give the signal to these cells, this brain first of all will give the signal to these glands. These glands will release the hormone, will mix into the blood, and it will reach over here. Now I am just making a zoom area over here. Once, suppose this is the cell, and this is the nucleus. Right? This is the cell and nucleus. And now suppose this is the blood vessel. This is the blood vessel, and this is your cell. Now what will happen? Suppose the hormone is coming, and this hormone is suppose which is present over here, right? So this is the hormone is coming, and this hormone is your aldosterone. Or suppose the ADH. Function of ADH is to reabsorb more and more water. Now suppose this ADH will come. What will happen guys? This ADH is coming from the upside, and this is coming from the gland, and this is like a messenger. So this will reach into the outer area of this cell. Now this cell outer area, it contains a receptor. It is containing a receptor, and this receptor we call as extracellular receptor. What we call this extracellular receptor? This extracellular receptor, the most common receptor we call as GPCR. This is your GPCR, and this GPCR stands for G protein coupled receptor. This is like looks like a snake, also called a serpentine receptor. This is the most common receptor which is found on the cell membrane. Now this hormone can't allow to come inside because cell says that this is my zone. You can't come inside. You are just bringing the information, just give your information and just leave all this information, and you make it out. So internal environment of this cell, this is very crucial for functioning. So this cell never allowed to any hormones inside of this area, and these hormones are actually functioning or playing like a messenger. So this messenger we call as primary messenger. What we call this? We call them the primary messenger. So this we call as primary messenger. Now this message, it will come over here and it will bind with this receptor. Once it will be bind with this receptor, what will happen? This receptor tails containing another hormones over here or another chemicals. These chemicals will be released, and now these chemicals will supply to the director of the cell. Because where the message need to be supplied? The message need to be supplied to the boss. This need to be sent to the boss, because who is the commanding center of the cell? The commanding center of the cell is the nucleus. So once this nucleus will get the message, now this nucleus will give the message to all their surrounding organelle that please wake up and please start doing their functionality. So whenever this boss wants to communicate with the cell, this cell is always communicate via the nucleus, right? And to sending the message up to the nucleus, this chemical need to go up to the nucleus, right? So this is how this hormone is actually function. So this hormone comes at this area, it will bind with the extracellular receptor. This extracellular receptor having another chemical, and this chemical will now relay the message over here. And these chemicals which is relaying from here, these chemicals we call as secondary messenger, right? So you can see these are your primary messenger, and this is your secondary messenger. And the secondary messenger, they are actually your CAMP, CGMP, IP3 and DAG. These are your secondary messenger, right? So this is how your secondary messenger is actually functions. This time on the 6th of July on 2024 FMG exam, they simply asked what is the function of the secondary messenger. So you can see the function of secondary messenger is that to take the information from the cell membrane and transfer to the nucleus. So that nucleus can get the message from the boss, and this is how this nucleus can give the command to the cell. So this cell is starting their functionality. So I hope now you can easily understand how these different extracellular receptors are there, how this hormone actually functions. Guys, please remember these hormones are actually like a messenger for the cell. So these hormones should be made made inside the body, and inside the body raw material is only three. That is your protein, lipid, or carbohydrate. Carbohydrate we utilizing as an energy source. So only the two products remain, that is protein or lipid. So if body wants to make this hormone, either this hormone could be made via the protein or either it could be made via the lipid. So that's why we named these hormones like the hormone which is directly making via the amino acid, by the single amino acid we call it amino acid derivatives. If via protein or via chain of amino acid we call it protein derivatives. If steroid is or the hormone is making from the lipid, that we call as lipid derivatives or the cholesterol derivatives. So this is how all of these different hormones can be formed inside the body. Now please remember two hormones of the body. That is number one is your steroid hormone, and number two is your thyroid hormone. Guys, steroid and thyroid hormone, they never act via the extracellular receptor. The steroid and thyroid hormone, they are having the receptor inside the cell. Means whenever they will come, suppose they are coming into the blood, they can cross the cell membrane, they can enter inside the cell, and now the receptor of this steroid is present into the intracellular fluid that we call the cytoplasm. So this steroid is having this cytoplasmic receptor, and thyroid is having receptor directly on the nuclear. So this thyroid is called as nuclear receptor. So this is the question which asked many times in your exam: which hormone containing the nucleus receptor? Answer to this question is thyroid hormone. Which hormone is having the cytoplasmic receptor? That is your steroid hormone, right? So this is how basically your different hormone functionality actually happens, and this is how your different secondary messengers are there. Now the question can come: can thyroid hormone is required any secondary messenger? No, thyroid hormone does not require any secondary messenger because thyroid hormone can enter inside the cell. They are having the receptor directly on the nucleus, so nucleus directly will get the message from the thyroid hormone, right? So I hope guys till now you can understand how our body is connected, how our brain is getting connected via the nucleus for each cell of the body, how they are getting their message, what's the role of hormones, what are the secondary messenger, what are the primary messenger, everything. So I hope till now you can understand many things. Okay. So are you enjoying or not? भैया अभी तक सब बस पढ़ाई जा रहा है कोई बातचीत नहीं कुछ नहीं तो बेटा initial segment I will explain more and you will write less, but later on once you will get all the proper idea then you will be able to get it, and then after that we'll write more and we'll study or I will explain little less. Okay. तो अभी तक मजा आ रहा है आपको? कुछ समझ में आ रहा है कि अपनी बॉडी कैसे काम करती है, क्या होते हैं हार्मोन, कैसे बॉस अपनी पूरी बॉडी से कनेक्टेड रहता है, क्या सेकेंडरी मैसेंजर है, राइट, क्या डिफरेंट पार्ट है सेल के, व्हाई वी रिक्वायर एवरी डे, दैट इज द प्रोटीन, लिपिड एंड कार्ब, एवरीथिंग, राइट. ठीक है. अच्छा अभी तक स्पीड ठीक है, तो शक्तिमान सर स्पीड कांस्टेंट रखना, लास्ट में रेल मत बना देना, नहीं बनाएंगे बेटा रेल, आप जैसा कहोगे उस स्पीड से अपन चलेंगे, राइट. सो टिल नाउ स्पीड इज ओके. यस ओके, बॉस ऑन टॉप. यस ओके गाइस, well done. So now let's come back. Now one more thing we are going to talk before going on the next topic, guys. As I told you that inside the body, guys, 1 second, maybe my camera is going to switch off. Okay guys, so now let's talk. Now please pay attention. As I told you that suppose this is your cell, and this is the director of the cell, that is your nucleus. This is your blood vessel. This is your blood vessel. Into the blood vessel, what is flowing? There is the flowing of the blood. So we know first we should understand what is the composition of the blood. So blood basically it is composed of two things. Either there will be the blood cells, or either there will be the water that we call as plasma. So blood is made up of the two things, blood cells and the plasma. And the blood cells are actually 45%, and plasma is 55%. Right? Plasma is 55%. Now this blood cells which is present into this blood, that is your number one, RBC, WBC, and platelets. Right? Platelets. So RBC, WBC, and platelets. Now the plasma, guys, you can note if you want, because all of this part I am just explaining so that you can easily understand. If you want to write all of this part, you can note it down into a separate copy or separate page or in the workbook, wherever you are finding the place. Okay. So blood cells are free in the blood, that is our RBC, WBC, and platelets. The function of RBC is that it helps to carry the oxygen, because each and every cell is required oxygen. क्योंकि हर cell को खाना बनाना है, and हर cell if wants to make the bhojan or wants to make the food, it requires oxygen. So this oxygen is supplying with the help of the blood, and which cell is supplying this oxygen? That is RBC. Then the WBC are actually the paramilitary forces. Suppose that you get a cut injury over here. Now if you got a cut injury, many good bad bacteria are present on the skin area, on the surface of the skin. They will enter into your blood, and once they will enter into your blood, they will try to attack on your body. So your body is required the paramilitary forces. These paramilitary forces is WBC, so they will immediately kill all of these bacteria. Then this pipeline, this blood vessel is a pipeline. This pipeline could be rupture, and if it is going to be rupture, we require to we require to again make new blood vessel, or we need to repair them. And so which cell is going to repair this blood vessel? So this could be repaired with the help of platelets. Right? Now talking about this plasma. Plasma is having three components. The number one component of the plasma, that is your water. Then number two is plasma protein. And there are three plasma proteins are there: albumin, globulin, and fibrinogen, albumin, globulin, and fibrinogen. And the last part is ions. Ions. Water is 92% of total plasma, protein is 7% of total plasma, and ions is 1% of total plasma, right? So this is the component of the plasma. That is our water, plasma, protein, and the ions. Three proteins are there: albumin, globulin, and fibrinogen. now, please pay attention. That's what is the function of this albumin? Why we require the albumin in the blood? Because please pay attention that this blood vessel which is present over here, this blood vessel is having the small pores over here. So these small pores are present over here, and through these small pores, what could be happen? That there could be a possibility that all the water which is flowing over here, this water can leak outside, and this water can come out from the blood vessel. So what happens? That all water, it will come out from this area. Why? Because whenever the water is flowing into this pipeline, this water is putting the pressure on the walls of the vessel, and this pressure, when it is put by the water, we call this hydrostatic pressure. What we call this? We call this hydrostatic pressure. So what this hydrostatic pressure wants? This hydrostatic pressure wants to leak the water out from this area via these small pores, right? But what happens? This body never wants to leak all the water out from this blood vessel, because what will happen? If all the water will get out from the blood vessel, this blood vessel will completely dry. No blood cells could flow into this blood vessel, and no oxygen could be supplied to any of the cells. So to counter this hydrostatic pressure, this body creates another pressure which is actually providing the opposite direction pressure, and this would be possible with the help of albumin. So what this happens? This albumin is actually, the tendency of the albumin is that it always tries to hold the water. So this albumin will not allow to leak all the water out from the blood vessel, and that is why this pressure which is applying via the albumin to hold the water inside the blood vessel, this pressure we call as oncotic pressure. What we call this? Oncotic pressure. So here you can see that one pressure is this direction and another pressure in this direction, and due to this balance of this hydrostatic pressure and the oncotic pressure, not all the water can leak out from this blood vessel, and all the time some amount of the water will always remain inside the blood vessel. So that is why this blood vessel could never be dry. So this is how this two opposite pressure is there. So that is the role of this albumin. So now this albumin, suppose getting leak out from the body, from where this albumin will be leak out, only the one organ for this body, that is the kidney, that can filter any blood product into the urine, and they can start leaking from the body. So if this albumin start coming into the urine, we call it as albuminuria, and this is type of protein, so we can also call it as proteinuria. And what will happen if this albumin will be gone from this blood? No oncotic pressure will be there, so no pressure to oppose this hydrostatic pressure, and all this water will start leaking out from this blood vessel, and it is going to be accumulate into the space between the blood vessel and the cell. This space we call as interstitial space, and this space is having more amount of water. That condition we call as edema. So whenever there is excess fluid accumulation into this space, into this interstitial space, we call as edema. And this condition, when this albumin is getting out from the urine, this condition we call as nephrotic syndrome, right guys? So this we call as nephrotic syndrome. So I hope now you can understand that's what is the hydrostatic pressure, why we require the albumin. Now please pay attention that this albumin, as you understand that this is present inside the blood vessel. Now what happens, guys? That this both pressure, combinedly these pressure we call as Starling forces. What we call as Starling forces. So these forces we call as Starling forces, right? So anytime anybody asks you what is the Starling forces, I can easily explain. Sir, the water which is flowing into this blood vessel, putting the pressure on the wall, so this water wants to leak out, called as hydrostatic pressure. To oppose this pressure, there is the albumin which is providing the opposite pressure, that we call as oncotic pressure. Combinedly both this pressure we call as Starling forces. Now talking about the water, the total body water, as I told you, that is your 60% of total body weight. Out of the 60%, some amount of the water will be present inside the cell, and that we call as intracellular fluid, and that is 2/3 of total body water, or the 40% of total body water. Now the water which is present outside of the cell, so outside of the cell are containing the two areas. Number one, for this interstitial space and the blood vessel. So this is we call as extracellular fluid, right? This is containing the 1/3. So this is extracellular fluid, so this is the 1/3. So out of this total 60% of water, maximum water is present inside the cell, and very less water is present outside of the cell. This outside of the cell is again having the two areas. Number one area is this one, and another area is this one. This space, or this area we call as interstitial space. So whatever fluid is there we call as interstitial fluid, and the fluid which is present over here we call as plasma. What we call this? Plasma. So here you can see this extracellular fluid. I can say that extracellular fluid is equal to interstitial fluid plus plasma. That is made the extracellular fluid, right? So this is how this extracellular fluid is actually present. Now, as we know that inside of the cell more water and outside of the cell little less water. But talking about outside of the cell, the water which is present into this area we call as interstitial fluid, and here is the plasma. Guys, most of the extracellular fluid, it is present actually in the interstitial fluid or interstitial space. So this will contain the total 75% of total ECF, and this will contain the 25% of total ECR, right? So most of the fluid, maximum fluid is present into the intracellular, then into the interstitial fluid, and then number 3 is plasma, right? So this is how all of this different fluid contents are there. Now there could be a possibility that extra water can come from this area to this area, or from this cell to this cell, or this area. If this happens, what will happen? This area getting more amount of the blood or more amount of the water, and this water which is going to be excess in this area, this condition we call as edema. What we call this? Edema, right? So I hope now you can understand what is the meaning of edema. So edema doesn't mean more water into the blood vessel or more water into the cell. The edema means the more water into the interstitial space. So if this interstitial space need to prevent from the edema, this area is having another drainage system, and this another drainage system is actually could be possible via the small vessels, and these vessels are present over here like this, and these vessels are called as lymphatic vessel. What we call this? Lymphatic vessel. Now please pay attention. Guys, what happens? That this extra water, it can be flow into these vessels, right? It can go into these vessels. Now what happens? In this blood, the blood cells, it can't be leak out, never, because blood cells are very bigger in size, they can't cross via these small pores, so blood cell never leak out, and they will never present into the interstitial space. Now from the plasma, water can leak out, but plasma protein again never leak out from this area, right? They should always remain inside the blood vessel, but ions can come outside. So what can come from the blood? That is the water and the ions, they both can come into this space. So if only water is coming, what will be the color of this water? If no RBC is there, this is not the red, this is the colorless fluid, and this colorless fluid which is present over here, this colorless fluid we call as lymph. What we call this? Lymph. So this is the lymph. If this pipeline is carrying the blood, this pipeline we call as blood vessel. If this pipeline carries the lymph, we call as lymphatic vessel. Now what happens, guys? Suppose any bacteria enter into your blood. Suppose this bacteria is present over here. This bacteria is present over here, and he is very much happy. बहुत खुश है. अंदर आ गया, blood vessel के अंदर आ गया. Now what happens? When this bacteria enters into the blood vessel, what our body priority? Our body priority is that immediately remove this bacteria. कि भैया इसको तुरंत हटाइए, इसको मारिए. And who will kill this bacteria into this blood vessel? This would be killed via WBC. So immediately WBC will come. WBC will immediately take the AK-47 and will try to shoot out this bacteria into this blood vessel. Right? What will happen? This bacteria will be gone. Again, blood will be destroyed. But suppose this bacteria escaped from the WBC and this bacteria enters into this space. What will happen? This